Hi friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing my May wrap up where I will be talking about the books that I read in May. As per usual, this will be quite casual. I haven't really prepared what to say, but at least this time, compared to the last time I made a wrap up, I do have stats now again. So let's just have a quick look at the stats for May. May was actually quite a great reading month for me. I got back into the groove of reading because I had been slumping a bit in March and April. In May, I got back into reading. I had my huge reading challenge where I participated in 8 different readathons and 4 book clubs. I read a total of 9 books in May. So if you start by looking at the stats and we look at the audience, 8 of the books I read were targeted towards adults and 1 of the books were targeted towards young adults. If you consider format, 3 of the books I read were printed or physical books, 3 of the books were ebooks and 3 of the books were audiobooks. Quite an even distribution of reading format. We can then look at genres. I read 1 fantasy, 2 contemporaries, 4 romances, 1 thriller and 1 book that I guess you could consider to be a horror. And finally, rating. 2 of the books I read I gave 2 stars, 2 of the books I gave 3 stars, 4 of the books I gave 4 stars, and 1 book I actually gave 5 stars. Usually when I do my wrap-ups I talk about the books in the order that I read them, but I've seen a few people actually talk about them in the order that they have rated them, and I wanted to do the same. So I'm gonna start with talking about the books I enjoyed the least, and then we will move up to my favorite books of the month. There were 2 books that I actually ended up giving 2 stars this month. Technically both of them are 2.5, I think I wrote them as in Goodreads, but I rounded both down. I feel like both are a tad bit controversial, but it really has to do with the fact that neither of these books reached my expectations, I guess. I think I had too high expectations on both of these books. The first book I'm gonna talk about, which might be a bit controversial, I think, is actually Bunny by Mona Awad. I was so excited about it, honestly. I've seen so many people obsess over this book. I've heard the warnings. I knew that it was gonna be a very weird and different read. Unfortunately, I did not vibe with it at all. At first, when I finished this book, I only wanted to give it 2 stars, but then I started to read up on it a bit and what it might mean, and like some analysis on the book and stuff, and like some theories, which made me add another half star to it, but it still simply did not live up to my expectations. It's about this girl, Samantha, who goes to this university and she starts to hang out with this clique, this group of girls that call each other Bunny. And it's sort of like this weird cultish thing, and you don't really understand what's going on. The conversations are super odd, the events doesn't make any sense, none of the characters are likable either. It was a fairly quick read actually. I can appreciate weird books, that's not it, but this was just too nonsensible, I feel like. Unfortunately, not a fan. I do want to read more by Mona Awad. I am still intrigued, darn it, but I think the main thing about this book is that I had too high expectations. Had my expectations been lower, I perhaps would have appreciated this book more. Possibly. Now I know what to expect in the future, and I still want to read other works by Mona Awad. The second book I read in May that I gave 2.5 stars is Bitter by Akwaeke Emesi. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year, to be honest. It's a prequel to the book Pet by Akwaeke Emesi. I'm not sure if I can call them one of my favorite authors, but they are at least one of the authors that I follow and is sort of an auto-buy or auto-read author for me. Before this one, I had read 3 other books by Akwaeke Emesi. All of them I think I've given either 3 or 3.5 stars. So it's not like their books are my favorite books, but there's just something I really enjoy about them. I thought Pet was really intriguing. I was very excited about Bitter. Unfortunately, this book disappointed me. The story was not as exciting as with the other books. That's mainly it, to be honest. I did enjoy the characters. I liked their interactions and their relationships, but I simply was not invested in the story. I was listening to this one as an audiobook. I zoned out quite a lot when I was listening to it. So it's partly on me for not keeping up with it, but it's also partly the story for not gripping me and capturing me, I guess. I understand that does a great job of highlighting some issues with our society as well, and there's a lot of parallels to be drawn, but it simply did not entertain me enough. I will of course continue to read books by Akwaeke and Mesido. I just got their newest release, which is a contemporary romance, which I'm super excited about, so I'm still gonna continue to read their books. It was just that this one did not live up, once again, to my expectations. Next up, we have the books that I gave 3 stars. First, we have Float Plan, which is a contemporary romance about a woman who is grieving her deceased fiancé, and she decides to go on this sailing trip in order to explore and basically do the trip that she and her ex-fiancé always talked about but never did. On this trip, she meets a man who helps her with the sailing, and so on and so on. It was quite a nice book actually. I did enjoy it. I don't have anything bad to say about it at all, to be honest. It was very feel good, but it didn't stand out. That's my very short and concise review of the book. We then have a book I gave 3.5 stars, and that book is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is a mafia romance that I read for the Mafia Romance Readathon, and I've been wanting to read Sophie Lark's for a while. It's about 2 rivaling mafias, so we have like the Italian mafia and then the Irish mafia, and there's an arranged marriage between the heir of the Irish mafia and one of the daughters from the Italian mafia. And they hate each other. It's enemies to lover, definitely. They don't enjoy each other at all. I found it to be a bit slow at first, but the more I read, the more I actually got quite involved in the story. It's also the first in a series, and I am intrigued to continue with the series. I would like to continue with the series. The steamy scenes were quite spicy. I did grow more and more attached to the characters. We then have the books that I gave 4 stars. First, we have Under One Roof by Ali Hazelwood. This is a short novella written by the same author who wrote The Love Hypothesis. It's just about these 2 characters that need to live together, which is my favorite trope. I love the cohabitation trope. The female lead is a scientist and the guy is a lawyer, I think. They don't really talk much, they don't really hang out much, but things happen. They grow attached to each other, they start to like each other. It's a very, very short novella, just about 100 pages, I think. I read it within a day. It was really entertaining, really cute, really sweet. I liked it a lot. We have The Marcus Makes His Move by Diana Quincy, which is a historical romance. This one is technically the 3rd in a series. I have not read the previous books in the series and I didn't mind, like I could keep up with the story. It's about a noble man who disguises himself as a servant because he wants revenge for something. But the woman that he is serving, they start to form a connection, yada yada yada. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. First of all, I found the audiobook to be quite great actually. I really liked the narrator. Also, even though the story felt a bit predictable at first, there were actually some twists and turns to the story that I did not expect and that I really appreciated. So I actually really enjoyed this book. And I'm curious to read the previous books in the series now. If you're looking for a good historical romance, although I'm no expert, I rarely read historical romances, if ever, I would recommend this one. This was really good. I gave it 4 stars. Like, it had a high 4-star rating for me. Next book that I'm only gonna talk about shortly, real quickly, because there will be a dedicated video to this one, is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This was my first time ever reading Sally Rooney. I had no clue what to expect. Normal People is about these 2 characters that went to high school together and they have sort of had a on and off again relationships and friendship as well. It's about these 2 characters that are really connected. They only feel like they can truly be themselves with each other, I think. This is a book that truly divides people, both because of the writing, because the writing actually lacks quotation marks or any sort of like speaking punctuation. I know that many people think this book is quite boring and I can definitely understand them. Many people swear by this book as well and call it their favorite book ever because they really relate to the characters and stuff, and I can really understand that too. I was surprised, or not really, I was partly surprised by the fact that I really enjoyed it. I read it within like 2 or 3 days also, and some things were disturbingly relatable, which annoyed me quite a bit. A very good first impression for me actually when it came to Sally Rooney. That's all I'm gonna say, but I did give this one 4 stars. The fourth and final book I gave 4 stars was Confessions by Kanae Minato. This is a book that is translated from Japanese. It is a very sort of quiet thriller. It is about this teacher who very recently lost her young daughter, and now she is accusing 2 students for killing her daughter, and she's taking her revenge on them. This story is super duper, super interesting. It's told in such a different way. The storytelling is so unique. Basically, I think the book is about like 250 pages or so. And each chapter, it's only like 5 chapters. And each chapter is really long, like 40 or 50 pages for just one chapter. And each chapter is told from one character's point of view, and it's very much like a monologue. Either the character is writing a letter, or it's a blog post, or it's just a monologue, someone telling a story in front of the class. And even though it's written in these very long chapters with very like monotone, quiet, chill sort of storytelling, it's still intriguing and it captivated me, and I wanted to know what's gonna happen, because the twists and turns in the story, and it's really messed up, but it's like a quiet messed up. I was such a fan of this one. I really enjoyed it. I contemplated giving this one 5 stars actually. It's a really different, intriguing and thrilling thriller mystery story. The one book I have left to talk about is my 5-star of the month, my 5-star read for May, and what might very well be my favorite book of the year is The Winners by Fredrik Backman. This is the 3rd book in the Beartown series. This book, the Swedish edition, the first edition, was released in October of 2021, and I believe it's being released in English in October this year. So it has only been released in Swedish so far, I think. I loved it. I adored it. The thing with this book is I started reading it in November of last year, and then for some reason I stopped at like 200 pages, and then this month or in May I picked it back up again, and I couldn't put it down. I don't know why I didn't continue with it, but like where I picked it up again, it hit me right in the emotions. You probably know that I love Fredrik Backman's books. I love the Beartown series. His books constantly make me cry. This was no exception. I bawled so hard by the end of the book, and I was also a wreck the day after, honestly. I don't know really what to say about this book that won't spoil the previous 2 books, because as I said, this is the 3rd and final book in a series, but it's about all of the aftermath after everything that happened in the first book in Beartown. Beartown in the first book is about a town that is crazy obsessed with ice hockey. That's their thing. It's a small town in the northern parts of Sweden, and all that town cares about is ice hockey. It's such a big thing. And the story is told from so many perspectives. The ice hockey star of the junior ice hockey team rapes the daughter of the sports chief for the club. And this stirs up so much in the town. People don't know whose side to take. There are so many discussions. Everyone from like the teammates in the hockey team, and like also like the girl and her best friend and her family and all of the characters around that, and the neighboring town. So not only Beartown, the world of Beartown and the universe, it just expands with every book. And this one will just really hit you in the feels, because by now in the 3rd book you have gotten so attached to these characters, you care about them so much, like you really just want them to be happy and do well in life. But of course Fredrik won't let you be happy. I cried a lot when I finished this book. It hit me right in the emotions. Obviously I gave it 5 stars. Quite certain that this is gonna be my favorite book of the year, because this one really freaking hurt, okay? It's an amazing book. Fredrik Backman is an amazing author. I will freaking die on this hill, okay? I will preach his name forever. Favorite book of the year so far will probably end up being my favorite book of the entire year. And those were the books I read in May. I'm very happy with the books I read in May, even though I had just 1 5-star. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. Please take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!
You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after all.